Hola community, how are you? How is it going? I'm here with another week with updates of Blender 3.0. Yes, not everything is about 2.93. Well, there might be an update on LTS soon. LTS releases 2.83 and 2.93, but the big star of the show today and for the rest of the year is 3.0. If you follow this show, you may know that I always talk about 4 releases a year. Last year we had the 4 releases. Okay, this year we're not gonna have 3 releases. That's one of the announcements I have today. There's new things in Blender. Blender 3.0 is just super, like so many improvements on performance. But the announcements. The first one is that yes, there won't be 4 releases this year. There will be 3 releases. And the third one is gonna be Blender 3. So, yes, we're skipping 1 release. It's for good news. It's for good reasons. 2.8. Remember, 2.8 took 1 year to be released. Actually, to be released. But before that, there was a lot of work being done on branches and stuff. So, yeah. It's for a good reason. Let's see what the chairman of the Blender Foundation has to say. So Tom Rosendahl sent an email this afternoon to the BF committers mailing list, to developers, and in general we're gonna write this on Blender.org as well. But what it says basically is that I witnessed in discussions about 3.0, I need to have a couple of in real life workshops with core contributors in order to solve pressing design issues. We have to wrap up the 2.8 UI work, review how it went, and fix some things that went bad. And also celebrate the ones that went great and expand on them. So yeah, there needs to be in real like workshops for 2.8. Remember the code quest, the Blender code quest? We had for those that are new to the whole Blender, like, or that started using Blender in the 2.8 era. Well, 2.8 was a huge release, and before that we were documenting and here in person when you could actually meet other people in the same place. The studio, the Blender HQ, received a bunch of developers from everywhere, all kind of areas. Like Eevee was being developed there at the same time, the dependency graph, the node system. It was just brilliant, just amazing days. Good old days, only a few years ago. Well, this kind of interaction with real people at the studio, it's needed in order to have a great and more polished 3.0 release. Meeting it online, it's okay, but nothing beats meeting in real life. So that is why the team, after the pandemic, after the summer in the Northern Hemisphere, so after maybe like July, August, or September, there could be some workshops here at the in the studio in Amsterdam, where we can all meet and hang out and discuss big topics for 3.0. How big? Well, just basically what is already planned, but also to define for the 3.x series, 3.1, 2, and 3. The usual suspects are node systems, animation and rigging, physics, particles, hair, real-time editing, all those that is already in the agenda. That's not gonna be changed, but it's mainly about also some UI work that was planned for 2.8 and was never finished. You know, all the tab system stuff, all the drag and dropping, the improve on drag and drop systems, and all of that, overlay systems and the edit modes, all of that. So yeah, it's a it's not gonna be a change as from 2.8 to from 2.7 to 2.8. So don't worry, you don't have to relearn Blender. It's just a good moment to, you know, get together after all these Corona crazy times and celebrate. Hopefully with a Blender conference at some point. Is that gonna happen? I sure hope so. As soon as we have news, I'm gonna let you know. The other big announcement of the week is the Asset Browser project update. This blog post by Julian Eisel from last week, and well, Julian Eisel and Sibren and everybody on the team that was took part of the asset workshop, and you can actually see it in action. You can see how the new asset browser will look like in 3.0. And this is already working. This is already working. Like, it's not some kind of mock-up. This is actually how it looks, how it works. If you haven't seen it already, go check it out, because you get all kinds of good information here, such as how library is gonna work, how the new catalog system, how it's gonna be the working, like making new assets, editing those assets, how it's gonna work with external asset engines or asset libraries like Blender Kit, for example. So yeah, or Blender Cloud. So very, very thorough blog post, editing assets with videos. It's the most interactive blog post in a while. Super nice. And also the integration with the post library add-on, well, not add-on, but post library system, the new one in Blender. So yeah, a lot of exciting stuff. And this is 3.0. You know what else is 3.0? You know what else is 3.0? I know that the release is gonna happen maybe around November, I would say. If you go to the Blender release download release, for example, to the releases list, you're gonna see the date that they were released. And 2.83 and 93, they were released almost on the same day, 1 year apart. So in order to keep this, the 3.0 should be maybe in early November or somewhere in November, to fit in that schedule. Here Tom mentions more like October, but it can always get a bit later. Also, thanks to that, Cycles X could be part of 3.0. That will make Blender 3.0 yeah, kind of the big deal. Okay, you know what else is a big deal? Performance improvements. And if you follow the show, I usually go section by section, and then I mention what maybe if there are a few performance improvements. But today the updates on performance are so many that instead of going section by section, I actually have a whole section dedicated to performance, even though they touch completely different areas in Blender. Let's see what are those. The first one is from my tweet. This tweet, well, it's not improvement from the tweet, but I saw this on Twitter today, and it was super cool. Don't get confused with the choice of the author by having a Blender looking like a different software, but look at this. Comparing 2.79, not even 2.8, but Blender 2.79, the performance there wasn't the greatest, but it was much better than 2.8 and 2.9. So comparing with 2.7, it's now actually 3.0, it's being faster. How much? About 25% faster in this test with 1.7 million polygons, and the frames per second is around 4 frames per second, or compared to 3.15. In edit mode with a soft selection, which it's, I guess, equivalent is proportional editing in Blender. Other software is called like that. But then, have you ever noticed too, like when you have too many vertices with proportional editing, that the moment you start moving the mesh or editing, the entire Blender freezes, like it waits for stuff to happen to start calculating. Well, in 2.79 it would take 48 seconds in this test, which now takes 2 seconds. 2 seconds. I'm following the chat, by the way, and here reading next to you. And Chris D, 2.8 was slower. Yeah, actually 2.8 was slower in terms of performance of edit mesh mode compared to 2.7. So it's actually a great test to compare the current Blender 3 with 2.7, not with 2.8, which we knew that it was slower. So this is super nice. Thanks Koro-san and Francois Rimazon for making this test. It's super neat. Not so much the theme though. I'm kidding. But yeah, freeze duration from 48 seconds to 2 seconds. It could still be faster, of course, but hey, 2 seconds. That's faster than you can say, unfreeze me, Blender. Okay, so with that in mind, there is a whole lot of mesh improvements. This, for example, this one, there is many of big improvements, also micro improvements that if you put them all together, then they will they add up, right? For example, here, let's see, Campbell committed this, simplify normal calculation. So the normal calculation happens all the time. When you move, when you edit your mesh, you are recalculating the normals constantly, right? Especially if you have auto normal set in your mesh, it has to recalculate to define what is going to be smooth or not, depending on the angle. So for example, here in this test, it gives about 5 to 6% calculating all normals, but only this commit is like 5 to 6%. Like this one commit, if you sum up all of the other ones, like for example here in this commit is multi-threading phase tessellation, which gives, depending on how many cores your computer has, but in this test, for example, it went up to 6.5 times faster on high polygon meshes. So yeah, although the exact speed up depends on available cores. I don't know how many cores Campbell has, but this is just crazy, 6 times faster. 6 times faster. So yeah, that is a very promising. Let's see what else. Let's see if there are micro improvements, some not so micro. Well, this one's not micro at all. 16% performance gains by removing some calculation from normal calculations. But yeah, 16% performance gain. Then another one related to phase calculation, again 20% by not calculating the phase but calculating the vertex normals. So yeah, 20%, 6 times faster, 15%, 16%, and then there are smaller improvements, like in this case by Germano. It went from mesh editing on a large mesh from 14 frames per second to 15 frames per second. So it's 1 more frame per second out of 14 to 15. But hey, every little bit helps. Every improvement. Here we have another one from 5.20 to 5.40, 15 to 15, almost 16 frames per second. Okay, I will take any improvements. I would take a bunch of these tiny little improvements over anything. Here another one. I have the same link actually. And then another one, use threaded IBO, for example. Here again going in milliseconds from 153 to 132, from 8 milliseconds to 6 milliseconds, but every little bit helps. And here again 2 to 3% when redrawing, because there are many layers to optimization. Some of them are drawing related, some of them are transform related, some of them are update related. This one, for example, remember last week I talked about Boolean improvements. Well, this one, it's only for Windows. Apparently Windows wasn't taking advantage of it, or I don't know if this is only for, like, if this was already on Linux or Mac, but at least on Windows here, by some improvements on by making use of the TBB scalable allocator, it went from 52 seconds on a Boolean geometry operation to 32 seconds. So that's quite faster, quite much faster. So those are some of the updates, but that is mesh editing. I don't know how in total how much it is, but if I were you and you were having issues by editing meshes and your computer was too slow to handle it, I would suggest you upgrade Blender. This is all in master, so you just go to the experimental builds. But okay, not everything is just improving mesh editing mode. We have this amazing update on a library that is not even Blender's. Is Open Image Denoise, completely out of, no, this is not mesh editing. This is the Open Image Denoise library in Blender has been upgraded to 1.4, which was released 28 days ago, actually, very recent. The Blender 2.93 shipped with 1.3, which was already much better and much sharper, but this one is way sharper in version 1.4. OpenImage Denoise is much more sharp by not doing anything, which means faster, because it means you need to render with less samples to have a sharp image, right? Also, it's not only faster, but it's less memory consumption, about 35% less memory. So yeah, thank you Intel OpenImage Denoise people for making things just better. OpenImage Denoise 1.4, yay. So that is when you use in the viewport, for example, OpenImage Denoise, or also when you render. That's the libraries you use. The other improvement in completely another section of Blender is the MultiRes Sculpt in general. It's much faster now. It's hard to measure how much faster. So in this video by Joseph Eager, developer of Vmesh back in the days, here, see this big chest here. At the beginning of the video, it's the, see how smooth. Okay, now actually let's go to the other part when it's actually slower. Let's first show the slow edit and then the fast edit. So about here, you're gonna see how clunky. It's a bit slow. You see how it takes like a few milliseconds to update, and here it's smooth. At the beginning it has like that stutter, but then once it starts editing, it's just yeah, just real time, just super fast. So yeah, sculpting with MultiRes is now much faster. Yay, more responsive. So thank you, Joseph, for working on that. Then okay, let's switch completely topics, but still performance. Who here is using, raise your hands in the chat if you're using line art and you are maybe not super happy with the performance, especially if you're using 2.9. Might not be as fast as you wish, but if you're not working in production, like if you can upgrade, I would suggest you to upgrade, because since 2.93 line art has become much faster, and especially with the update that I'm about to show you, is that the loading of objects. So when you load a scene, all the objects will be loaded at once in like one go. Now in one thread, so it would be very slow. Like one thread on your computer would be doing all the work, the other ones will be sleeping. Not anymore. It's time to put those threads to work, because the object loading of line art is now threaded, multi-threaded. So how much faster? Well, it depends on your scene, but in the test here, for example, the loading time went to almost half. So yes, super neat. Thank you, Yiming Wu, for working on this. Here you have some of stats, and just faster in the test with the Mr. Elephant. And yeah, this is just amazing. I love performance improvements. I would have this for a year without anything else new. Okay, what else? I talked about the OpenImage Denoiser, line art, mesh editing, sculpt editing. Let's talk about performance in the video sequence editor. Do you use the transform, you know, just to transform, to move and strip a piece of video or a logo or something from places? Well, it's now faster. How much faster? Well, if your scene in the test here, if your scene was about 20 frames per second, now it's 300 frames per second. So this is just nuts. And also this test is on a debug build, which means they are slower by like they are slower usually, because they have to show more information. If they crash, they have more data, so debug builds are usually slower. So this should be actually faster. This is awesome, super awesome. Image transform is now much faster, but also image crop transform, actually. Image crop transform. Then what else? The transform itself also faster. This increases end user performance by 30% when playing back a video in the video sequence editor. So playback in the sequencer much faster, about 30% faster. Also in the timeline, when you, well, the sequencer timeline, if you have for example, a color strip that is animated, the color would change color. It will be updated on every redraw. But if you don't have that, if you're not using animated color strips, there is really no need to update that part of the editor. So that's what the improvement that Jeroen did here. So basically it's not updating the entire editor unless there are animated color strips. Super nice detail. Wouldn't even know, actually. It turns out that redrawing the entire editor in that area affects playback heavily, so this should be faster. And I like the idea that has here, that Peter has, about instead of redrawing the strip itself, the color, maybe having like a gradient from one color to the other if it's animated. That way you can have best of both worlds. You can still see it, and this could be cool to implement eventually. It wouldn't work when you have tiny strips, I guess, but most of the time it should work. Then more improvements. Again, here a 5% improvement on the image transform. So this is again the sequence editor thing. That's I asked Jeroen today that. I think he was on work hours, sorry. And I asked him about this update. The use parallel range from image buffer. Again, tiny micro improvements, but much more welcome. And the last but not least, last week I mentioned in all of the performance gains that there was a performance decrease because there was a bug in geometry nodes that would prevent multi-threading from working properly. So it was disabled last week. It's solved. Now it's enabled again. So geometry nodes should be faster than last week right now. Super good news. Well, it's all good news. Let's see what else. Okay, I have a few other. That is all for the performance updates. I think we got more than enough. Then let's see in animation. Animation side of things. In the animation side of things, there is an improvement in curve editor selection. Look, the developer here, Maxim Casas, which is it your first patch? I've never seen you here in the neighborhood. Maybe, yeah, curve selection. I think if you scroll to the, yeah. Oh, and then other patches that are coming. Thank you. Welcome to the family, Maxim. The patch, it's improving the selection of curves in the graph editor. So let's see what does it mean really. So okay, if you're selecting a key and you box select, I don't know if you get to see because there is a there is a gradient here. Maybe you can remove the control. Oh yeah, there you go. So if you do shift click, it will extend the selection with a new curve. Super neat. If you do box deselect in a handle, it's not gonna deselect the entire curve. That is good. But if you do box deselect in a section of the curve that doesn't have a key, it will deselect the entire curve. So that is also super nice, because that way you can select curves much more easily. Just box select in a section of the curve that you want to select. If some keys are on a curve are already selected, then shift click can be used to select all the other keys of that curve. So that will, if you have some of the curves, it will extend and expand the selection though, in a way. Then what else? I think that it's all. Yes, that is all. So thank you for working on it. basically in a summary is box selection improvements in graph editor. Let's switch topics quickly to the asset browser. The asset browser now allows you to link assets, not only append. Until now it was only working with append, so it means that it would bring the entire object and object data to your scene. Now it can also link it, which is essential for production. I didn't have a mate in the whole day. Okay, and in the next section, let's switch into geometry nodes. Geometry nodes, actually, I have a few, and I need to pick a sound for the new node alert, because the new node alert, there's actually a couple of new nodes. The first one, it's convex hull. What does it do? Well, it doesn't have any options because it doesn't need many options. It's just, if the website would load, probably it's faster. Let's see, the website is still loading. It's faster for me to open Blender, go, okay, now the website is loading, but it's probably faster if I just show you here what it does. It's a pretty common in other softwares, but here, look, you have a monkey, and then you add a convex hull here node, plunk it in, and then bam, it joins the mesh. It makes like a bounding box, but as tight as possible, watertight. So this is very common to use. For example, if you're doing physics, you can use this as like the bounding box for physics. So yeah, super neat. Convex hull, down to the point, no settings, no options, super neat. So Henrik, dank je wel. I was gonna say thank you in Dutch. Thank you so well. Thank you well. Thank you, Henrik. The other node that joined the party today, this week, it's new. It's called Select by Material. Super simple. Again, it gives you an attribute, a selection, based on the material that you set. So if you want to, I don't know, assign, if you have a material around an object, and then you want to apply, or I don't know, add particles only on that material, now you can assign it. You don't have to make a new attribute for it, or use some kind of material index magic there. You can just create a new selection tag out of a material. So yay for flexibility. Speaking of flexibility, the next improvement is in an existing node. It's in the switch node. The switch node now allows you to switch even more options. Materials. You can now switch between 1 or 2 materials with nodes. Who would have thought? Isn't that crazy? Then you can switch textures as well with nodes. Where is the limit here? The sky is the limit. Well, your memory is the limit. Switch textures and materials now are part of the switch node. Super welcome additions. The next improvement, it's related to curves. Curve instance support in the bounding box node. Previously only meshes were working. Now you can support curve instances. Super neat. And the last, also related to curves, is that when you use the curve resample node, it will preserve all the spline attributes. It's not gonna previously it would only keep the point domain attributes to the result curve. So yeah, very neat. All right, next topic is like Python API, because there's 2 changes that if you make add-ons, it's important that you listen to this section, because there are some changes in the Python API about these functions in particular, these use keyboard only arguments. And here's a list of the ones that you may want to have a look if you need to update them. The links are in the description. This is the first episode ever where I add the links to everything that I'm showing before the live stream. So I'll try to keep doing this. It's pretty handy. It's a spoiler, but yeah, don't watch the description before if you want to get surprised. And the last improvement in the Python API is an option for render engines to disable image file saving. For example, if you're writing a network rendering engine and you don't want Blender to write images because it's handled by your own engine, there's an option for that right now. And okay, now is the potpourri section. There is 3 new additions. The first one, there's a new unit. It's like bending physics. There's a new unit in the universe, in Blender universe, Blenderverse. Time stored in seconds. Now you can, for the time being, it's not being used anywhere except Cycles X. So it's not yet used in anything in master yet. But if you make an add-on and you need, for some reason, to have time stored in seconds, now you can. Time absolute. The other improvement, well, this is a change. Just a heads up that last week I showed you the overlay for object transfer, the the flash that would happen when you switch between objects with the tilde key when you jump around. No, not tilde, the one that is under the escape key. The setting used to be on an overlay, and it would mean that you could change it, turn it on or off, or change it depending on the viewports, and that wasn't really the intended way of using it. So now has been it moved to the operator, and eventually it will become a setting in the preferences that you want to turn on or off. So yeah. And the last but not least is for people using Windows out there. It's a window fix for Windows. If you're using Mac or Linux, this shouldn't change, because actually Windows now is behaving like Mac or Linux. It's something related to the render window as a top level window, not a child of the main window. This means that it's no longer on top, nor is the icon grouped on the taskbar in the same way. But you can alt tab between it and the main window. So this is based on feedback from the community. I don't really know exactly how that works. I don't have Windows here. But it probably works well if it works the same way that it does here on Linux. Although I do miss the like I have to use Blender by default because of the live streams and stuff, but I wish I always turn off this. I go to render in the image editor, not in a new window. But yeah, every time I switch, I turn off the settings, I have to do it again. The last no, that's it. That's all the updates in the master version of Blender, the one you downloaded from the experimental sections in builder.blender.org. However, there are some worth updates related to Cycles X, so I want to quickly go through them. First, the first steps to restore baking support are in baking on Cycles X, so it's faster, but not only faster, it's still missing a few passes. It's not complete yet. However, it now works with optics, it works with adaptive sampling and denoising in the baking Cycles X. Super interesting. So by the time of this commit, only combine was working. However, there was later another commit that introduced more passes. Still not ambient occlusion and shadow, but yeah, super neat. And also the normals are now baked as -1 to 1, which is good. Blender is actually expect 0 to 1, and so the Blender side has also changed. And the last but not least, the first initial, the basics for volume support in Cycles X is now well, you can see here, restore homogeneous volume absorption. So you can start doing the first tests of volume in Cycles X, and I guess soon in other Cycles forks. Next is the last 15 minutes of the show, so we have some time for questions. Let's go to Blender.community, which if you have been on the website this weekend, you may have noticed that there was some downtime. I tried to, well, we tried to make it, to keep it at the minimum. We tried to upgrade the site with Francesco and we failed. Computers are, internet is weird. Internet, like, we had it working with a subdomain, but not with Blender.community. That was the whole thing that was stopping us. Can you imagine? Anyway, we are gonna try and solve that. Will likely be out this week. We want to have the new Blender.community website out this week. So yeah. All right. Let's see. I'll give you an update, but it's so exciting to see for you to see the new website. There are so many little things. You can have attachments there. I mean, we're not gonna spoil the fun. I will probably do a live stream though, maybe not on Blender, the Blender channel, because it's not really related to Blender. Blender community website is an independent initiative of the Blender Foundation. It's not related to Blender Foundation. It's like Blender Artist, Blender Nation. It's independent. So I will do it in the Blender community YouTube channel. Okay, Chris Dude. Hey Pablo, I hope you're doing well. I'm doing fantastic with the new Blender. Hey, nice question about the new community. Will the new Blender community by any chance allow actual embedding of YouTube videos in a post, as opposed to putting a link that makes the reader, that takes the reader to another page? Yes. Actually, this used to, like, the embedding used to work. This website, the Blender community website, is in maintenance. We haven't updated anything in forever, which is, you probably know if you have been browsing website in the last few years, that we haven't touched anything. However, the embedding of videos stopped working. How annoying. You know, when you release a film, when you make a movie, it's over, it's done. But when you release a website or a video game, suddenly they stop working. It's super annoying. So yeah, websites rot, and this is one of the signs that it's happening to this site. However, in the new Blender community website, embedding of videos, of YouTube videos, works, and it works just as well as in the other ones. There is you can, like, the best way to copy and to embed is by using one of the tags that we have. So you write YouTube. There will be notes on how to do it, but usually you do this. Use YouTube, like curly brackets YouTube, and then the ID, and that will make this well, okay, maybe I can give you a bit more of, like, I can put the code in quotes so you can actually see it. There you go. And there, can I have a full code? Yeah, there you go. So yeah, this is the kind of the way of writing embeds. So this works, and also works that when I like your comment, you're gonna get a notification saying that your comment has been liked, because now you don't get that. You only get the notifications about comments. So yeah, it is so much nicer, the new website. And also the best thing is that it's new, and we can update anything, and we can do the craziest request from people. We can get them done. I don't know, anything you think, really. And also it's open source, so people can help us making website. Finding developers for making websites gonna be much easier than finding Blender developers. So it would be great to have your help in there. Anyway, Felipe says, hi Pablo, I'm excited about Blender 3.0 continued UI redesigned. It's not redesigned, it's refined, I would say. One simple thing I would love to see is a simple search bar in the filter add-ons list. When we say simple, it's usually not that simple. But yes, I see that what you mean. Add-ons are getting more and more important for professional workflow, and making your own spaces are a great way to organize them. Making your own workspace is kind of a nightmare right now. Is there a UI solution that about the add-ons messy situation? Saludos desde Paraguay. First, saludos a Paraguay. where is it? Simple search part in the filter add-on list. Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. In the sidebar here, when you have the workspace settings. So in, or is it in item or tool? Tool. Why is it in tool? Here, this is what you mean. That would be nice to have a search. Well, actually, this, why doesn't this become a UI list? Is there any developer out there? Maybe this sounds like an easy-ish task. Like, just use this layout in here, because here you can search whatever. So if we just convert this, like these checkboxes can be here. Sounds like it should be possible, right? Or actually the checkboxes on this side, so it's similar to this. Yeah, it's better following the UI language. Okay, this is a homework for whoever is watching and wants to dive into the Blender code. This is all Python too, so it shouldn't be that hard. Thanks for the question, Felipe. Next question by SciVFX. Hi Pablo, the developer of the non-linear sliders featured in the recent live stream is busy, so he can't implement my related pressure sensitivity slider proposal. Could you please help to find the right developer for this? It would be a really useful feature for all tablet users. Additionally, he mentioned that the alternate version for mouse users could be relatively easy to implement, using the Y coordinate of the cursor as the multiplier of the slider. Even the time slider of long YouTube videos have such feature. Oh yeah, this thing. Yeah, this would be having this kind of, yeah, would be great. Hey, it's Ian. So yeah, it's 4-hour live stream. Yeah, that would be pretty neat. I don't know who can work on that though. Like input is so, like, it's hard to find a developer for that, because working with input stuff, it means that that you have to support the 3 operating systems, multiple tablets, like APIs. So not easy. Here is a public call to anybody that is willing to work on that. So please step in. TC8. Hey, well, actually, okay, let's try and answer all of the ones up here. I think we have time. So, hey Pablo, thanks a lot for doing this show all week. Thank you. Can we expect all the missing modifiers coming to the geometry nodes, such as array, wave? Are there plans if or when they will be implemented? I would say, I don't know if all of the modifiers, maybe not all of them, just the ones that make sense. Also remember that some modifiers are modifiers, but they're really physics, right? Like clouds, collision, like dynamic paint. That's not all of them can become, or like data transfer. Yeah, they don't all of them make sense. The array one really makes sense. Solidify is actually being worked on. It's gonna become it's on its way to become a geometry nodes modifier, and that work is being done as part of the Google Summit of Code. Blender, did I put the news in Blender.org? No. Or did we? No, actually, well, we don't have a blog post for what? Blender Google Summit of Code. There you go. So organizations, and in the list of projects here, Fabian is working on porting popular modifiers to geometry now. So if you look at his if you look for him in the Blender developers channel, you can stalk him and his commit history. And I saw that today he was working on the branch for here, Google Summit of Code, porting modifiers to nodes, and this one is Solidify. So yeah, you can you can stalk Blender developers. Please don't feed them, don't talk to them, but you can see what they're doing. So that is pretty neat. Next, but array would be a great candidate. I don't know if it's in the list of modifiers. I don't know where is the list of modifiers that he will work on, but array would be awesome, especially so we can finally have some randomized and circular array, which is super simple with geometry nodes, but adding it to the modifier not so much. The next question by Marco Fugaro. Hey Pablo, I've been using geometry nodes and they are really powerful. Apart from the live preview, not in the spreadsheet, something like the node wrangler does for shaders, the main thing missing for me, hey, you should update Blender, that's already in. The main thing missing, sorry, I need a drink, is a way to prevent infinite node changes. Let me explain. When I'm working on a geometry node with geometry, sometimes I need to modify an attribute and some other times I need to modify other attributes. In the end, I end up with a really big node chain and it's hard for me when I reopen the project and the next day. The only thing that is helping are frames. Oh, actually, you would be pretty happy to learn about the attribute preprocessor in geometry nodes. Attribute processor. Let's see if Father Google or Mother Google here, it's talking about it here. Prototype for the attribute processor. There is a task. Again, it's being worked on. It's basically a way to have a bunch of processing of attributes like in one kind of node group, but something that it's more that is not a node group, that is not has all of the overhead of sharing and user counts and all of that. It's pretty important and it's being worked on as we speak, so it should be up eventually. GGCG23, hola Pablo, congratulations on your fantastic show. Thank you, makes my Mondays even way easier. Thank you. One question, the multi-resolution modifier. Why is there no way of accessing the vertices of a higher subdivision level other than by sculpting them? Is there a technical reason behind it, or is it just that nobody asked for it? No, there's a technical reason. I would love to select and move and rotate the vertices directly using the modeling tools. My background is automotive design, and for that I would love to work on sub-level details while still being able to optimize proportions on the mesh. Any chance that functionality like that will be possible in Blender? Not that I know. I don't know with the new work that is being done on MultiRes/BMesh and stuff. But yeah, I would say, correct me anybody if I'm wrong, but I think it's a limitation, a technical limitation. Otherwise, there would be no reason to hide, or yeah, to hide it in other modes or limit it to certain modes. Photo Enix. Hola Pablo. After also because in sculpting you cannot really add or remove geometry that much. You can just move geometry, but in edit mode you can. So yeah, if you have to store a whole new mesh per multi-res, I don't know how that's gonna work in terms of performance. Usually when something is not available, it's because it's a really bad idea for performance and it's the computers don't like it, or it's a kind of worms that might make everything unstable or too much memory eating and stuff. So Photo Enix says, hola Pablo. After falling in love with package managers on Linux, I started using one for Windows, Chocolati, but they're still stuck on 2.92. This is the reason, according to the maintainer. Unfortunately, currently there is no estimated time of when the package will be updated. The problem is that the Blender website authors have updated the site to use a JavaScript-only way of acquiring the version, and we have not yet been able to figure out a solution that works to acquire the URL and version needed to update the package, other than manual detection. Can you help them out? Well, it's the let's see, JavaScript only version. No, actually the website should work without JavaScript. I tested it without JavaScript, should work. The however, you can simply go to download the blender.org/release and have access to everything. And the moment a build is updated, is gonna be listed here. Everything like the 0.1 releases, for example, the 0.1, 0.2 releases. Well, here there's no 0.1, but because there was no 0.1, it was just moved to 0.2. But everything will be here. It's listed in download.blender.org release. So if you can just point here or maybe use a mirror, the mirrors are listed on the Wikipedia in the process of release cycle, and then mirror. There should be like a section for no, not the release cycle, the release checklist. And here mirrors, and you can see all the mirrors that are actually serving Blender right now. Blender.org, look, the Aachen University, I think. This is from Denmark, and this one is from America, the Clarkson University. And thank you, all the mirrors. The next, okay, MP into VDC. Can we have an official statement from the Blender Foundation of the awesomeness of Dynamo Dream? Finally, I managed to. Actually, no, because well, I don't know about the rest of the Blender Foundation, but I haven't had the chance to watch it yet. I always, like with the release of 2.93 and now with Blender community release, I couldn't find, I have it there. I want to watch it, of course, because I saw the entire Dynamo, the previous series of Ian Ewert. I'm a big fan of Ian Ewert's work. If you haven't seen the making of Tears of Steel, you are missing out. You should watch it. So as soon as I get to do it, it's watching Dynamo Dream from Ian Ewert is gonna be my reward when releasing Blender community, when they're releasing the new website. Otherwise, I'm not allowed. So yeah, I'm saving it for it. No spoilers, please. Timothy. Hey Pablo, how's your Monday going? It's going fantastic. It's like 27 degrees and I'm here locked up talking to a piece of electronics up here. In the last Blender.Today, people have been asking for the option to make groups inside of Blender. I added a proposal to right-click select and I wanted to know what you think. Alright, this is the penultimate question. So let's see. Make group option for collection. Ew, no. I would, well, sorry. Sorry for my reaction. My reaction of this. My first reaction, sorry, is because of this is an operator, like make group is an operator, and it looks like a checkbox, and it shouldn't be that way. It should be like, if you want to have a checkbox, it should be like group behavior or something like that. But even then, what is group behavior? It's not very descriptive. So, or maybe it should be like transforms or like select multiple. So yeah, it's a different. Yeah, it shouldn't be a checkbox for sure. What you mean here is that having the creation, no, basically transforms for a collection, right? When you click on that box, everything inside the collection becomes a sort of collection instance, which allows users to select everything inside the collection just by selecting one object within that. No, I think that's, it shouldn't be here, maybe. And I think it shouldn't be a setting. It should just be part of the way you select things. Otherwise, if you, yeah, I don't think. I think it's just it should be in the here. The way you like, maybe instead of clicking on collection, you click on the icon and then it selects everything inside, or it opens a it makes this gizmo show up. I mean, I'm not taking decisions here of anything, but I think it shouldn't be a setting, another setting. It should be just how it works, and it should be more built in the way collections work, because then you have to turn it off if you want to select an object inside of that collection, which could be done by, I don't know, double clicking or something like that. Yeah, thanks though. it's important. I'm not ditching this proposal, just saying that it's very important to have different point of views and different, because I bet there are other tasks, other ideas here on right click select that are related to this, and the more proposals and ideas are by the community, the better you can have an understanding of how people expect the tool to work. So this is very important. It's not ditching. You don't delete this proposal at all. Leave it there, and you look at all the discussion that is going on. Even this is gold. When people engage and answer and then talk to each other about it, this is the best. This is the best kind of interaction. That's why right click select exists. Okay, the last question is already a bit late. So okay, Sansuls CG says, "Hi Pablo, I hope you're having a great day. What's the future of effects in Blender? Is there something we will see in major improvements with nodes? So far, MantaFlow can actually give good results, but with performance issues. It gets a bit painful to use if I have a high-res simulation in the viewport. Yes. But there aren't any good solutions in Blender for organic rigid body destructions and granular simulations like sand. Now pretty much all the 3D software has some kind of Voronoi fracture except Blender. Well, Blender has the add-on, right? But it's not built in. So will we get a better Voronoi fracture, any fracture system and rigid body in Blender with nodes? Because nodes are my only hope after seeing this version of geometry nodes, which was supposed to be for scattering, and people are making buildings and motion graph. So that gives a lot of hope for node-based physics in Blender. The very first version was focused on scattering, but the more you suddenly there was primitives and material handling and curves and stuff. So that was at the beginning. When you work on a project as huge as geometry nodes, you gotta focus. You need to find one use case, in this case scattering, and then get that to work, then move to the next. In Blender 2.92, the time allowed was only for scattering, but soon it was okay, what is next? Attribute handling. So that went into 2.93, all the improvements in handling the attributes and editing and removing and assigning. And for 3.0, it's more about even material handling inside of geometry nodes, curve handling as well, curve support. The next not because it's not the next, but next improvement and big project similar to geometry nodes, and probably will be tackled by about the same team that geometry nodes, because now geometry nodes is at a stage where the community developers can already contribute and just migrate more nodes and maybe make a few new nodes to handle things in a more generic way, or some modeling, procedural modeling tools, I don't know, extrusion and inset and mesh manipulation. That already can be handled by the community, and the team that built the foundations of the geometry nodes project could focus on something new, big and exciting. And the next one of the big candidates, they are hair editing and the simulation. So basically having collection nodes, not geometry but collection level, on which you can apply physics, real-time physics. A new clock, that's called. It's not the clock that you watch, that you press spacebar and it goes frame by frame, but more like a real-time clock, independent of the current animation that you can execute, and simulations, and then they will be baked or not, that kind of stuff. There are big plans, and if you look at the email by Ton, that is part of the physics, particles, hair, real-time editing with the node systems for 3.0 and beyond. I wouldn't say 3.0 yet, but more like 3.1x, after this, in the whole 3.x series. So yeah, big news for that. Also, there's an add-on for node-based rigging for Blender. Rigging nodes. Yeah, I saw it time ago, and it's awesome to say the least. Is there gonna be a node-based rigging system? There you go. Again, the CEO of the Blender Foundation, it mentioned that because this add-on is very powerful, but there are nodes that will let you write scripts to automate or execute math functions. will we get any node like that in geometry nodes? Because there will be user write some scripts, then artists don't have to use 20 nodes to do complex math operation. Well, this is, I think it's too early to define that kind of options in the future. But if you are familiar with this, I would say please stay tuned, and as soon as a project like that gets announced, get involved, because people will experience that the best way to help Blender is that just whenever that it gets implemented or starts to get implemented, and when you hear the news here in the channel or in the Blender channels, Blender developers channels and stuff, please get in touch. Go to the Blender.chat, and there is usually a channel per module. So the animation module, or if there is some kind of like nodes. Right now there is an everything nodes channel, which is very very broad, everything. But yeah, I would say keep an eye on that, on the updates on the everything nodes. And with that, I will close today's live stream. That was a lot to take, right? Performance all over the board. I am so curious to see what people are gonna be doing. Please, if you're on Twitter or Facebook or on Instagram or anywhere, share the comparisons, like this user I shared at the beginning. It's super motivating to see people using and comparing how it used to work with the new ones, because it really opens Blender to many more people with not the all super high-end hardware. So I'm very excited to see how Blender 3.0 is actually gonna make Blender more accessible for even more people, even more so than 2.8. So very exciting. It's time to call it a day. Thank you, everyone. It's been a fantastic day. I think it's time to leave in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Watch out for the headphones notice, because gonna get loud. Okay. If you have any friends that speak Spanish, I'm gonna be doing this in Spanish in about 15 minutes, 1 hour, in Blender Hoy, somewhere in the channel. You should find it. Otherwise, I will see you again next week, same place, same time, for another episode of Blender Today Live. Ciao.